not going to affect the actual content, because most of us know why we're here, you know, and what we're going to speak about mainly, because it's ongoing discussion, I think, for a few maybe years now, because as you know, we are an artist-run initiative, which means that this whole project is a kind of creation itself. It's even an artwork, I would say. I would go that far to say that it's an artwork, but so maybe we will just I would say a few words of the national context, and we'll develop further on maybe ideas, because we don't need to stick to just what the situation is here and why. You know, it's better to speak about possibilities of just continuing doing this in a proper way. Proper way means a successful and sustainable way. That is going to actually, in one part, be financial, independent, well, has sustainability, financial and independent sustainability. In another way, have effects over what we're trying to do, affect the social and political system in a way, I think. So. For those who don't know, I formed this NGO in order to start doing, like with legal form, this creation. So it's going to be, you know, eligible for funding and to be responsible for organization. But otherwise, I'm an artist. More of the people here, I think, are in the same situation as me. I'm going to ask each one of you to maybe present with a few words, and then we're going to start to, because Mary is her only day here now, so it would be nice. In the program, I think it's listed for 24th, right? So we're going to shift that. So we're going to listen to what she can say from her point of view, and we're going to start with Kaspers, our friend Kaspers. So just a few words of presenting yourself, and then we'll continue with the topics that we have chosen to speak about.
Okay. My name is Kaspars Lielgalvis, and I'm from Riga, from Latvia, and I'm representing here Total Dobře Art Center, which is also an artist-run initiative and started 4 years ago. And we're located in a former factory for 3 years, and then we lost our space, and now we moved to another space. I don't know for how long time, and we are still looking for the new space right now. And our main focus is interdisciplinarity in art. So we try to build a platform where musicians, poets, visual artists and contemporary dancers, nobody would be the preference or kind of, they would be always equal, and we try to stimulate a collaboration between the representatives from different disciplines. That's very short.
Yes, that's really short, because he has some projects that later on he will talk about. Yes, Mary?
Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to start by thanking Nia for... Sorry, I've had a lot of coffee this morning. To thank Nia for inviting me, and congratulations to her and the team and all the artists as well. It's just been really, really a wonderful few days. So to introduce myself, my name is Mary Conlon. I'm the director of a cultural resource centre in Limerick in Ireland called Ornston House. And we've been running for about 3 years now. And the space that we are in was lying vacant for about 5 years, but 5 years during the boom, because it's a very expensive building to rent and to run. So I approached the local authority and negotiated a contract with them and with the property owner to use the space until such a time that a paying tenant will come along. And there have been other organisations that set up and who have disappeared, unfortunately, or they've moved or they're in a state of transition. And for us, so we're there 3 years, we don't have secure tenancy. I think that's a really key thing, especially if you're looking at sustainability and getting funding. Obviously funding bodies would be very nervous to know we could lose the building at very short notice. So one project that we're doing this year is, instead of just banging our heads against the wall and trying to figure out solutions to lengthen our contract, that we actually basically want to buy the building. So there's a number of options. Either we're going to buy the building and gift it to the city, but actually since we started to talk to different people, the city are actually interested in buying the building, which is really exciting. So they see a value in what we're doing. You know, it's been difficult, it hasn't been very easy for that, but yeah, so we have a focus on visual arts because everybody who works there, that's their area of expertise, but we also have music, theatre, environmental campaigns. So the idea is that there was all this creativity in the city and people didn't have a space or a platform, you know, to share their ideas. So that's really what the building is all about. And it's just a space, we're not there to satisfy the architect, but it's just a place for people to come together, discuss ideas, challenge what's happening. So it's been really exciting 3 years, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll have a little bit more security in terms of our tenancy. Is that okay?
Yeah. So we'll continue. I would like to invite Petr Canev. He's really, I'm just going to make it very short. He's the only represented the Art Academy, the educational side of which I think is really important, and I thank you very much for participating, so please. I will translate. Okay, I will translate. So. He's going to be very short. He's leading this, the Department of Psychology of Art at the Academy. Which is a challenge itself, because it's the only department of its kind in maybe in the Balkan region, or Eastern Europe. Yeah.
И това, което се занимаваме в нашата среда, е да създаваме нови категории и то в пространства, които са доста консервативни.
And what they're trying to do is create new categories in the institutions of art and education.
Това, което ще презентираме кратко, е свързано с психологическите платформи, като възможност за съпротива срещу останалите форми на фестивална, галерийна и музейна практика на изкуството.
What he's going to present is psychology platforms for more of a
festival culture.
Yes, like protection of festival culture, galleries and spaces as well. Well, that's what his presentation is going to be about. Okay, thank you. And John, please.
Hello, my name is John Fail. I'm representing an organization called Един, which was started 5 years ago in Helsinki, Finland, and in Tallinn, Estonia in 2011. So it's been sort of trying to operate in both cities with a physical space in Estonia and as a floating platform in Finland. And over the years, I'm the only constant member, and we've had a lot of volunteers come and go. And it definitely was started without any actual idea of what we were doing. It's just, oh, let's make some fun stuff happen. And over the years, I think we've sort of developed a rhythm, and we're very much focused on participation, and everything we do is an event. We are not a visual art space. We don't hold exhibitions. We are a place for workshops, discussions such as this one, educational activities, experimental, open forum collaborations, and the occasional screening or talk. But we generally like the idea that if you are coming to Ptarmigan, you're not going to be in the audience, you're actually going to be participating. So you're coming to be part of something. So it's like every alternative art space, it has its problems with stability, funding, all of these things we're going to be talking about. In our case, I think we've even been challenged by what we do. If you think of the word miscellaneous, that's definitely our aesthetic, and our goal is to provide a space for things that don't fit anywhere else. And I feel that we've been successful in that, but it also means that we are quite marginal in the eyes of the public. People don't always understand what we are. People really like to know what they're getting. Is that music? Is it sound art? Is it visual art? And I guess I personally have refused to provide an answer to that and just said, why don't you come? And so that's been another challenge. But I'm going to be leaving the organization at the end of the summer, and at least the Estonian side is going to be closing permanently. So it's a real interesting time for me to be here, because I'm personally going through all sorts of reflections and thoughts about what did it all mean? What's next? Where do we go? And I guess the name of this whole event is called What Next? So that's quite a nice starting point. But yeah.
So maybe I would suggest that we can start with the maybe topic of your presentation, and then we'll continue with Petr Canev. Just to mention that we have coffee break at some point, so maybe we'll just do it that way.
So how long do you want to do the presentation? I like the part in our lecture, so I'm not going to do that, but like 5 minutes.
No, is there Wi-Fi here, Georgi? I'm not sure. We'll ask. Melina, може да видиш дали има Wi-Fi here? И какъв е парола? Yeah, we'll find out.
It's okay. Well, what I was going to play, it was a sound clip. Do I need a microphone, or can everybody hear me? Is that okay? No, please. The microphone. What I was going to start with was 1 minute of a meeting that was held at the beginning of January. I suppose maybe just to give a little bit of context about the situation we're in. We're the inaugural National City of Culture in Limerick. And what I was going to play was the first minute of a meeting that was held at the beginning of January, which hopefully... Great. Thank you. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second.
I just have to put maybe, meanwhile, this making it clear, we were in, most of us, we were together at Supermarket Art Fair, and I was with John in one, he was a moderator in one meeting, which, I can't remember the topic of that meeting, but it was generally like, Elizabeth was there too, and basically we just couldn't stop talking after it finished, because there were so many questions that were raised that we really needed to continue on that, because obviously this is happening on European level, and we started talking with Mary after that, so she had some really good ideas that maybe she can share later on, and with Casper's too. So this is how it all happened, that we decided to continue this here. Yes, if you're...
Okay, so hopefully everybody will... I'm just going to play the first minute of this meeting. No, nobody can hear. Fine.
Can you please tell us once more what you're going to play?
I would say afterwards. I'm just going to play the first minute and then I'll explain.
Okay.
So first of all, can I just say welcome everybody, and thank you for coming out on such an empowering night to what I believe to be a very important meeting for our city. If I could at this point ask if there are any media present in the building, present in the meeting, I think as a point of courtesy to all of us, I would ask them, would they mind leaving? Yes, sorry, yes, can I have? Sorry, yes, okay.
Okay, so to provide a little bit of context, on the 1st of January, Limerick became the inaugural National City of Culture. On the 2nd of January, the artistic director, the head of the international programme and the head of commissioning and legacy projects resigned on the second day. They said their positions had become untenable. The communication between the board and the artistic team was non-existent. And this meeting was held, and the board anticipated about 100 people to come to this meeting, and about 700 people turned up. They had completely underestimated how committed and professional people were. They had misunderstood the passion, the mood, and as a result of this, I think the following day the CEO also resigned. And there was a very interesting comment in the Irish Times editorial that weekend, which I'm just going to read out now, which I think we could probably all relate to. So it reads, "The extent to which the arts are now locked into the language of the marketplace seems to suggest that the basis of investment is the return that comes to the exchequer, which is no way to devise cultural strategy or place on the arts the proper value they deserve in a fulfilled society." So we then issued a statement. There were lots of meetings held and an interim head was appointed. So the importance of that meeting still hasn't really been dissected, I think. That people came together, these 700 people, there were artists, art professionals, but there's also business people, citizens, stakeholders. Everybody came together because essentially they felt that the City of Culture has been hijacked by politicians, some people said. They felt that the City of Culture was being used as a branding exercise. The arts and culture were seen as high quality entertainment, that's a direct quote. And also that this branding exercise for the city was without actually really understanding the content of what people were doing on the street. So the really positive, I think in hindsight we can see that this was the best possible start to the City of Culture because it sparked national debate about cultural policy, about good governance, about funding strands, and about organising ourselves to have our voices heard. So I thought, just to give people an idea, so within the last number of months it's actually become a very successful project. Although it might be interesting to say how do you define success. But basically people insisted that the appropriate expertise and experience, that there was people appointed to really deliver this project. Actually that it was the content and the people who made this, that it wasn't just purely a branding exercise, which people felt it had become. So that's just a little bit of the background. And now all of a sudden, there seems to be better understanding. There's lots of platforms that have been created, like the Visual Artists Workers Forum, which I'd recommend people to look up. There's the National Get Together. So there's lots of these organisations who are coming together to discuss various issues, but they're also inviting people from other areas to come in with their expertise. So it's not just the arts community talking to each other, and this has been so key. So like Leah was saying at the beginning, like we all might call this a crisis or a period of disruption, but every time there's a crisis or a period of disruption, it's followed by a series of solutions, and we need to be part of that discussion and that debate. And the interim artistic director, Mike Fitzpatrick, who's seen as something of a saviour, he's completely restored confidence in this project. And he gave a presentation recently at the Visual Artists Workers Forum. And somebody said, well, how do we get invited to the table? How do we get to start talking to people? He said, you don't wait to be asked, you get to the table, you make the phone calls. And really, I think we have to do like a 360 and look around and actually, while some people would argue that it might be reductive, say, to look at economics, and that suddenly we're into this language is setting the tone. We need to have as many tools in our weaponry as we can, as much information as we can to argue the importance. And as we all know, a lot of the time it's very difficult to quantify, it's very difficult to communicate, but we need to find a way to get that across. So I'm actually I'm going to skip forward, if that's okay, to actually the discussion that we had in supermarket. So I think that's what you wanted me to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically the discussion that was led by John was on diversifying budgets and income strands. It was along those lines. So people came in going, great, we're going to have all the solutions. But it was a really interesting debate because people talked about their own experiences, the issues, the solutions they had come up with. And what really surprised me is that the discussions of people in countries all around Europe actually are experiencing the same problem. It's like we're a room of creative people, what are the solutions? And one thing that I proposed, which is something that Nia picked up on, I think that's what you wanted me to talk about, and I was talking with Hannah a little bit last night, is this idea of a grant writing agency. That there are resources and funds that are untapped by a lot of, say, independent and artist-led organisations, simply because they don't have the personnel or the time, in some cases possibly the expertise, to look at these funding structures. For example, some EU funding, some of the applications are 76 pages long. The drawdown system is a spreadsheet of 26 pages. You can, there's very strict rules and procedures that really would need a full-time grant writer to work on this and to gather the information. And a lot of independent and artist-led organisations are usually underfunded, under-resourced, etc. And so the idea of this agency was to basically set up a platform, preferably EU-wide, for organisations or artists to approach. That there would be an education aspect to help people with the skill of writing applications, for example. Or if you had a big project and you wanted to apply for different funding strands, but you weren't sure what to apply for, that there may be strands that you might be familiar with, or trusts or foundations that you'd be eligible for. So there would be expertise there in terms of what potential avenues you could take. And also, so the idea of the agency would be that there would be, say, a flat fee. It's like, also, how do you keep this sustainable? A flat fee, but you essentially write your actual fee into the application. So if you're successful, then you pay. But there would be a flat fee to cover, that would be a minimal charge, but your actual fee would be written into the application. So that way, if you're successful, you pay for the job via your own application.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And how do you think it's like on a European level, or it's like national, or it's because basically the fundings which are for culture come from European grants and things, and maybe this network is more appropriate in a way, because they're absolutely impossible to get to write and to actually comply with their regulations and stuff. I just wanted to say something else. What you said is the national city of culture.
National city of culture, yeah.
Which we don't have in Bulgaria. We are about to get into the competition, and the decision is in September for 2019. The capital of culture title, and in fact the festival is in favor of this. But I'm just saying it's in favor, but there is not really communication on any level of really one-to-one with the institutions and things, and the artist organizations as well. Maybe some of them have more communication. I didn't have clear communication with this, and I think really it's going to happen on the same thing with well, I don't want to predict anything, but if we win, it will be good in one way, but it will be quite institutionalized and put in perspective of only, of course, it has to be led by someone, but yeah, this is my opinion. I don't think there is communication with the real need of artists and artist organizations of what is there to be, and the context of their works as well, because obviously it's going to influence, you know, on a bigger scale, this act of becoming capital of culture.
I think that would actually depend on the situation here in Sofia as to how institutional and open it is, because I think each European culture capital has quite a lot of autonomy over how they run the festival, which we saw in 2011 when Tallinn and Turku in Finland were both capitals at the same time, and seeing the approaches were completely different. I mean, there was much more happening in Tallinn, but then everybody got much less money. And so it was a decision to spread it and make the city seem more alive, whereas the Turku capital was focused on more large projects. So it's going to really depend on how it works out here.
Yeah, I think every capital is different. I think Kaspers has another story, because Riga is, when was it? Now it's capital of culture, and your organization is not part of it. Well, that's how maybe I would feel too, if we win. But let's not, you know, be pessimistic. Yes, yes.
I think as well it's important to bear in mind that each city or capital of culture will be different, because you have to bear in mind the ecology of exhibition spaces or of artistic practice or output is going to be different in every city. So I think it's good that, you know, that it changes. And actually Limerick is in contention for capital of culture in 2020. And this seems very much where there's a lot of research been done, there's a lot of preparations for the application. We're against 2 other cities. I think one city is now dropped out of contention, so it's going to be Limerick and Galway. So there's a lot of research been done to figure out what the model would be. And it's been really interesting because there are really wonderful people now as part of the team who are very inclusive. In Limerick, artist-led organisations, studios, the institutions, everybody is talking to each other, and that is so important. There's transparency in that, and I think that's really, really key. You know, people aren't working. I mean, there are people, you know, who I don't like the idea of a city of culture as a rule of thumb. I think that's fair enough. But yeah, already there is collaboration, cooperation, discussion between all these spaces, individuals, or organisations. And that's something that's very special, I think, in Limerick, because it's been like that for some time. And now with the City of Culture, and seeing this meeting where 700 people turned up, but they expected 100, just goes to show, and this is a small city, you know, it's about the 10th the size of Sofia, in terms of population. So it's a very small population. So I think it's really key that people like yourselves, individual artists, are able to input to the application and what this will look like for Sofia or another city in Bulgaria in 2019.
I don't think we have, there is one application for the whole capital of culture, which includes, after debates, some research made with, to be honest, some people who I don't know, who are, well, not that I don't know, but that I know everyone in the culture and arts, of course, but There has been some research, and on the basis of this, there is an application which is done by non-artists, I think, but yeah, they are cultural operators, let's put it that way. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to shift into, do you think you can continue with your presentation? Or, because in this quick shift of well, discussion, I think it's the educational part, which is really, for me, is really important. The side of education that brings well, this information of arts and culture and the importance of arts and culture to the young people and the opportunities to this. Basically, I think what we're dealing at the moment is what happens after the education. Obviously, you know, in the real practical terms of being an artist or art organizer or cultural operator, but does education has the, I'm going to shift to him, has the link to the processes, and maybe you can comment on that. Yeah. I'm going to translate.
Okay. Именно тази проблематика за това как един влизаш в изкуството, млад човек трябва да се администрира като субект. Тоест, основният проблем,
the problematic of a young person getting into this art scene,
че сега, днес, повечето възможни формати за изкуство
is that nowadays the contemporary formats, the possible contemporary formats for art,
като области, като домейни,
as general spheres and media and domains,
имат една много специализирана администрирана функция на артиста като субект. Тоест той е юридически, етически, политически.
Specific administrative function as an artist. He's a political and other ways engaged. Yes.
И много това, с което се сблъскваме ние в образователната система, е, че все по-малко яснота има по отношение на представата за фигурата на артисти, т.е. фигурата на художника.
What we come across more and more in the education in the arts is the actual figure of the artist himself.
Като една въображаема категория, т.е. не като заварена ситуация.
Not as a ready made situation, but as a imaginative figure.
И това, с което той разполага да се въобрази отново като художник.
And what he would make out of himself in his imagination as well, for the artist himself.
Състоянието днес е релационната естетика.
The situation is relational aesthetics.
Изкуство на участието.
Participation art.
И всички тези форми, които демонстрират една свобода на субекта.
Freedom of the subject of art. They're demonstrating freedom of subject of art.
В същото време показват все по
showing the narrow
стеснено въображено поле за
imaginative field.
Това, което може да бъде фигурата на художника днес.
For what it could be, the figure of the artist today.
Това, което казвам, не е нещо ново. По-скоро това, което съвсем кратко искам да изложа пред вас, е това, че ние в изполето на изкуство днес си представяме радикалния субект преди всичко като политически субект.
How we perceive the subject, the artist as a subject is more of a
като политически
as a political subject as well.
И Но това е регресивна фигура.
But this is an aggressive figure.
Тоест, това е в план на един етически контекст на изкуството. Етически.
It's an ethical context of the art.
Освен въобразения контекст за една въобразена, фабулизирана фигура на художника, ние имаме и остатъците на това, което е един естетически режим на изкуството, който доминира все още в официалната култура.
Yes, a part of the imaginative figure of the artist, we also have the aesthetic level of the art.
Като доминиращ модел.
As a dominating model.
Фестивалната култура се базира върху революционния субект.
The festival culture is based on a revolutionary subject.
От друга страна, имаме идеята за тоталната творба на изкуството, която е пък музейния фетиш.
The idea of the totality of the art.
И в тази пропаст между
And in this gap between these two,
на практика това, което предстои да се случи през следващото десетилетие, е как фигурата на художника ще успее да революционализира по нов начин своят психологически потенциал.
And what is yet to come in the next maybe 10 or 20 years is the revolutionary model of the artist himself made up in a new way of revolutionizing his role.
През 20 век ние имаме един феномен, който може би не много от нас си припомнят или знаят, но но категории като антиизкуство и антипсихология се появяват за първи път в изявление на художник. Да. Категорията арт-терапия също е изобретена от художник. Идеята за свръхпсихологизация на изкуството Over-psychologization. Както и категориите за депсихологизиране, т.е. антипсихологизация на изкуство, също те стартират едновременно с дадаизма и сюрреализма. Платформа. Откриваме ги през различни десетилетия в различни форми движение на изкуството.
We see them over time in different movements of art.
Скритата психологизация на изкуството, т.е. провала на сюрреализма е и неговата голяма победа, защото той успява да премине в абстрактното изкуство. Преминава в форми като концептуализъм, така че парадоксалната ситуация дали художника ще избере пътя на свръхпсихологизирането, което обаче, за съжаление, минава през алианс с науката и образователна система.
Would the artist go into the over-psycholization? Как се казва? Over-psycholization?
Или ще търси своята защита през една депсихологизация на своето поведение. Парадоксът е...
Може би аз не го преведох добре. Или ще търси
една пълна депсихологизация на своето съществуване като индивид.
Or would search for a complete de-psycholization of its own existence.
Парадоксът е обаче, че това се случва в едно психологическо общество.
But the paradox is that this is happening in one как да го преведа това?
Psychological society.
Psychological society.
В което всички технологии
where all the technologies
са оставили много малко пространство
have left a very little space
за една нова фигура на художника,
for the actual reinventing of new figure of the artist.
И именно това е най-любопитното нещо, което според мен предстои.
That is yet to come. Thank you. Yes. That was not very easy to translate, I have to say. I hope you kind of got the general notion of this, because this is really a professor from the Art Academy, so he's giving a glimpse of what is happening in the educational system at the moment of art in Bulgaria, at least. Yes, okay. Do you think you want to, well, do you have any comments and questions now, maybe, that we could continue? Yes? Absolutely, yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I think I've understood. I hope I haven't misunderstood. It's very interesting to see the perspective to hear about Bulgaria. I know that this department is actually quite unique.
Yes,
in
Eastern Europe.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think something like that in Ireland. I don't know, so it's a very interesting model. In the Irish context, which I'd be interested to know if it's the same in Bulgaria, where art colleges are starting to be run like businesses. You know, and it's more students, but usually not necessarily more resources or more teaching staff. There's a pressure, obviously, to increase the numbers. And I thought it was very interesting. A colleague of mine who teaches in an art college said actually the students arrive and actually see themselves as clients. That you're delivering a service to them. Is kind of a shift in attitude. And what he was proposing was that if you're having, say, 200 students who are graduating, these 200 students are not all going to become artists.
Yeah.
But he doesn't see that as a failure on the part of the college. He thinks there needs to be a change in thinking on that. He proposes that people who come to art college to study graduate as creative citizens, but they might go into different areas. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective, this idea of a creative citizen. And I think it's really important to stress that he doesn't see that a failure on the part of the college if not these 200 graduates don't then become artists in their own right. The same way that if you studied English literature and you don't become a novelist afterwards doesn't mean your time where your research doesn't have its own value. So I thought that I'd be interested to know what you think of that idea of the creative citizen, because it seems, in terms of what you were saying, that yeah, maybe it's just the terms. Maybe I'm getting caught up in the terms of artist and creative citizen.
If I can say something, this has been happening in Finland as well. 6 years ago, there were 6 different educational institutions in Helsinki, and now they've merged into these 2 super universities. And the idea is to run it like a corporation in a sense. And the value in that, sure, you reduce admin. You don't need 7 secretaries. You can have one doing the same job. And of course, this is all coming from the neoliberal impulse to emphasize business and economic development over art. But I've been surprised by how surprisingly pleasant this has been for the art faculty, because I think what this has done is it's brought to the surface the secret funders of the art schools anyway. Because it was always, I mean, I'm completely speculating here, but you would see what comes out of the media art school. And it's a bunch of future Nokia engineers who are there to be media artists so they can ultimately have creative engineering solutions to develop mobile phone products. And I'm sure a tremendous amount of the funding always came from these corporations anyway. So I think when you overemphasize that now, then it becomes much more obvious that this is a school for startups and internet technology. And then the art faculty, like the environmental art people who teach there, they've told me that actually it's been great since this happened because no one's paying attention to them. So their freedom to innovate and their freedom to really just push so-called artistic research against the creative industry is much more than it used to be. It's only going to be temporary. It's going to be a few years of this, and then I'm sure they're going to cut some budgets and find a way to make it more efficient. But this idea of the creative citizen is totally out of Richard, Florida. I mean, that's the whole creative class crap that we've been fed for the past 20 years. And we're not going to stop that. So yeah, let's find what can be positive about that. If we all have to be creative citizens and we can't be artists, then how can we at least pressure the definition of a creative citizen from a side that is maybe critical of the profit-making side? And I think that's what, if there's any radicals left in art universities, that's what they have to do now. It's kind of selling out and giving up, but I think it might be all that we can do.
I'd have to say I disagree. I'm obviously...
We need to disagree, though.
I wouldn't take the Florida definition here, but of course, I mean, it's there to be due reference. But I think what this particular educator means is that he feels that art hasn't really been fully instrumentalized across society, that when he sees the colleges, like he wants them to obviously maintain their kind of autonomy to a certain extent, it's more to do with instrumentalizing art, which you feel hasn't been fully realised, and which I completely agree with. And I know it may appear idealistic, but I think it's something definitely worth exploring. Yeah, it's just...
I guess I come from the other angle, which is, you're saying that art could have this role to change society, and that needs to be more active. The artist has a voice in how our society is shaped and how our economic system develops and things like that.
Well, the creative citizen.
Right. And I guess I'm focused now, and I don't want to get too off topic, but I would like to think of a situation where we're just directly trying to change society so we can get to the point where then we can make all the art we want. Because if we've stepped back from the monetary system somewhat and we've changed the way that we exist and we live. But I think that's written down for tomorrow's discussion more, so.
Well, there's no problem mentioning it now. You know?
Well, there's a sneak preview.
I don't know if it's the artist's will to change society. I think just
right, I'm saying
maybe not really. Yes, let's not have that. To be honest, I just want to put this little. I don't want to play as a you know, country. I don't want to. This is the Bulgarian expression, of course, but I don't want to replace the country's, you know, jurisdictions in being an artist. But I can point out at things which I'm interested in, I feel, or I feel painful about through what I do, and work with them, with the country, with the. So being creative is, I think, in a way, it really, I think it's important that people do not take it so like the profession of artists so seriously in a way. Of course, for themselves they have to be serious, but it's not this point of, doesn't matter really if all the artists would not become, all the students would not become artists, but they would have the paths to creativity within themselves, like that, whenever they need it. So I think this is important about the creative citizen. So it's not about changing.
That's very beautifully said, actually.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well,
if anyone wants to say something too, because. So we soon have a coffee break. Maybe we'll need it, and then we can continue. Yeah? Well, of course, if you want to say something else.
No, I think maybe we could find a guided question, maybe if you're research on the question, I can ask you.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yeah. well, you can ask even now.
If
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let's have a.
So, like you were saying about understanding your national structures and national structures, like support structures, and understanding the situation in Bulgaria, your own context. Yeah, this question of how do we work with what we have now? Is the first question. And there's a seminal film from the 1960s in Ireland called The Rocky Road to Dublin. That actually during the student the revolution, like May '68, was actually shown in Paris, and it was shown around Europe, and actually was banned in Ireland, interestingly enough. But the key question that this film or documentary asked was, what do you do with your revolution when you have it?
yeah, that's it.
So it's just a question maybe that I might pose to.
So we'll continue later on with that and with.
Just to add with because.
You want a microphone?
Maybe voice.
Thank you.
This is our Ustойчиви.
Hello everybody, but I'm sorry for the voice, but what you said just reminded me of a proverb, a Chinese proverb I found some years ago. Since as a Bulgarian I had to reflect, even if I wasn't interested personally in revolutions. But this is a proverb that I like very much, so it sticks very well to what you said. You cannot make a revolution, you can only be the revolution.
Yeah, good. Yes. Okay, so let's have coffee.
And the reason for that is because it is the local council that's losing out on their rates. So the landlord is benefited by paying less rates than the actual council. And that really inspires them to get involved with their program. So it is, like you said, that the local council is kind of the main loser in the whole situation. So it's, yeah.
What other case studies do we have here? Does anybody else have an interesting story about some sort of change of the room? Can you take the microphone, please?
I'm consulting some festivals here in Sofia, Begin around Germany's beer fest, and 24 hours of days with programs with big groups in Bulgarian and foreigners, free, only pay some beers and free potatoes, some another meats, and that's first festival begin when destroyed the Museum of Communist leader George Dimitrov. And they say that's not good place, and another place in the garden of Sofia University, and the moment of Sofia, army of military Soviet Union. And that begin diplomatic problems. We say that we do this, young people around this moment enjoy and listen to good culture and good music all over Europe, not only Bulgaria. And that's begin, they say no toilet, they put cabin, that's another technical. And I like Irish whiskey with some ice, with some culture figures. Now, Lufthansa give me frigo, put ice to put on the cap of whiskey Irish. Very like it. And that's the culture is very souvenir, but culture of all people. And no order after that security some problems. And here problems of spirit at Burgas, some alcohols, and many go to doctors after that. And more of them is Irish people, young people. And that's one of the problems here of risk of cultivating. And when we begin this, we put every floor of the hotels security, 2 persons. You understand? That's 1 year ago. And when we begin security, many young people not coming because they say that many security, same problems. And must pay some police tax for securities about this. And when we begin free, begin many gypsy to do some problem of his culture. Many Finns don't know about this, how gypsy put in Bulgarian gypsy or Romanian in the Finland's parks and do some stupid things. Here begin too, but they say discrimination.
So there's quite a
one festival,
excuse
me, one festival of gypsy is one of the best. I go this Sunday, and the brothers around Sofia, Filipovci, the area festival of Gypsy Brothers, the name of this festival, no place, no common cross, because many people, not only Gypsy, Bulgarians and other foreigners, I go, I don't believe. Must this do it risk about joy, not about some other risk of stupid things, I think. Question, why do it practical Irish, that Irish Gypsy doing good lot of the dance, and all the world like it, on the films, on the TV, on some other. I don't listen about here new communication of internet, power of communication between people, because here some problem of afters, must pay about afters, items. Авторски права. Трябва да се плаща. Преди да се използва. Ако нямаш това ордер, има глоба. Бих щатък.
I think that, at least in Northern Europe, we've been quite lucky.
Това фестивал и свира някаква музика на наша европейски изпълнител, трябва да платя авторските права предварително. Това е един от проблемите. Включително и в Каварна Рок-фест. За химна на България искаме дори авторски права. Вече беше безплатно, това ги спаси. Като пример, дам за нова година.
Your national anthem is copyrighted? Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that in Northern Europe, I think we've been very lucky in that our content is quite free. You know, we might have all these problems with finding space or getting audiences, getting people to work together, but I don't really feel a lot of kickback from authorities about what we're doing. You know, I think you can even be very politically provocative, and maybe that's actually sad because nobody pays a lot of attention. But do you think that like the activities of your organizations have caused scrutiny from the power structures in Limerick or Riga?
Not really, but just maybe some property, fire, security things where we are active.
But the actual art, they're not interested in it.
The content.
Yeah, the content of the actual work you're exhibiting and creating.
We've had some works that I expected problems with. Performance works, sculptures, different works that we expected possibly to be closed. On one occasion I expected. I did expect to be challenged on some of the projects that we've done, and actually surprisingly, things that I find like really provocative or challenging, we haven't had the response. Well, this is it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think the important thing for us is that we will not censor the artist. So long as, obviously, again, back to this relationship of trust, that people aren't taking advantage of, there is still a sense of responsibility to the organisation, to the artist, to the work, etc. But we won't censor the artist, and that's a really important thing to do. We did have problems in Dublin when we had an artist. We had an off-site exhibition in Dublin, and it was a Dublin City Council building, and the artist wanted to throw eggs at the building. We had lots of meetings to allow her to do this. In terms of the content, very little. I mean, even from our audience, we'd have an audience that would generate lots of discussion, but we haven't really come under scrutiny.
But here in Bulgaria, maybe there is a bit more control or a bit more of an engagement. Like with what was in this festival at Water Tower? Did Nia, I mean, she's not here right now to ask this, but was there any sort of the people who funded this, did she have to run anything by them? Did she have to do this intellectual property stuff as well?
First must pay about security, about some actors' rights, and then must do it festivals. That's one of the problems here, practical. Small and small festivals. Bigger begin, but small and small festivals.
Yeah, there have been two problematic situations in Ireland in recent years. Related to censorship, where two artists had their work censored by local authorities. And there has been very, very strong debate and discussion, argument that's been on record, that people around the country have got involved in these conversations. One was recently in Northern Ireland. One which was really surprising was the work was taken down because the father of a city councillor found it offensive. This work was 15 years old in a different country and internationally came back, and his father found it offensive. So they officially announced that it was going to be removed, but actually it wasn't removed in the end. But in the media, it was been taken down. Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understood your question though, in terms of the problem, the security problems.
Must first pay for security, for police, and then do festivals from organization.
I'm sure anybody who had to go.
Close the street must pay to major. To close security something, police must pay.
Okay.
Produce culture and some other festival.
Yeah, there were tons of security guards last night at the old hall, which I thought was sort of ridiculous. We've reached 1 o'clock, which is our lunchtime on the timetable. So did Caitlin want to get a comment in now?
Yeah, Mia actually did say, when I asked her about the censorship, she said, like, I really don't, she said, I don't care about censorship, so I think she really doesn't want to. And I think she tries not to show anyone the work beforehand. It's interesting because the piece we showed last night in the big hall, it was with the leopard, and that piece was actually the museum who owned the leopard. They didn't, after they found out the usage that we had put it to, they were trying to cause some problems with actually showing the work. And the other artists we worked with actually was not able to show that piece because of censorship issues in a show in London, which was surprising.
But was it censorship based on content or based on rights to use the image that the museum owned?
Content.
The content.
Yeah, because it was they had given us permission to film that leopard, but yeah, it was the content, the provocative nature, I guess, and the sexual, whatever they defined as sexual content, which we thought was very odd. So yeah, I guess.
I think that as much as we might talk, and these discussions always turn into therapy for artists and arts organizers, but as much as we cry and commiserate over funding and space and time and all of these things, I feel like content control has never been an issue for me, and I think I've just been very maybe lucky. We're working in a context of Finland and Estonia where everybody's blasé about everything. I don't know.
I don't think this has been a sort of, I think there's been hello? I think there's been a great kind of energy and contributions for. I don't think people are feeling kind of downtrodden at all, actually. I think people are identifying particular issues, but we're kind of sure. I don't get that sense from people that people
There is a sense.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't mean this particular session.
But it may.
I mean, supermarket meetings are generally quite therapeutic. Yeah, it's. I don't know. Should we take this moment to pause for lunch? I don't actually know what lunch is or where it is, but okay. Should we? And this is an exercise based on organization. And what I want us to do is this back wall here. We're going to line up, and we're going to treat this as a line, like from left to right.
And I'm going to shout something. I'm going to start with height. And without anybody speaking, I want everybody to just go and form a line from shortest to tallest. And let's just see this as an experiment in self-organization and negotiation without language and how we can perceive the differences. So, okay, height. Everybody just get in line. And if Marco doesn't join in, I'm going to be very upset. Does that look good? Does it work? Okay, now let's do color. Less to most.
Less to
Most.
Less
Color.
color.
what did I say?
Less.
Okay, let's do south to north. No language. Okay, and one last one. Let's do cold to hot. Okay, is everybody awake now? One more. Oh, you can think of one.
Marcos, the place is here.
No. Foot size? Foot size, okay, small feet. Small feet to larger feet.
If it's moving foot like on the wall, is the passive.
Okay, we're all performers now.
So the last one. Okay, one more. Here more organizers. Here are more self-creative artists. Organizers here. Artists there. You see so many who can't decide which side they are. So this is... Okay, John.
Okay, well, maybe, I like that we're all in a circle now. This is what I wanted all day, but maybe we could maybe not be right here. I was thinking, because, you know, we're also supposed to be here tomorrow, and we have all day. And it'd be good to try to have a little more focus about what we all are here to accomplish from 2 days of talking together. So I was thinking it'd be really nice if we could break into some groups now. Maybe like 5 people at a time. So maybe like 5 clusters of chairs. Just 4 or 5 people, just whoever you're sitting next to. Like, it doesn't have to be someone you know. In fact, it's better if it's somebody you don't know. Let's say that. And then, can we get a few more? I'm going to pass out a sheet of paper to each group. And what I would like us to do for maybe 15 minutes is talk to each other, get to know the other people in the group. And I want to ask the question, what is it that you want from culture? either as a producer, an artist, an organizer, or a consumer, somebody who goes to see things and goes to participate. But what is it that you want? What are you looking for? And I want each person to write down one sentence that describes what they want. And of course that's going to be difficult because we all want lots of things. But that's, that's capitalism, right? And after everybody in the group has decided what they want, I would like the groups to then come up with one sentence to combine all 5 people. So then I'd like to see how we can maybe negotiate desires between strangers and try to reach some sort of consensus and some sort of common goal, even though this is a very simple and somewhat stupid exercise. It's interesting to see how we can define desire as a group and start to maybe think about that as a method for how we might organize our activities as alternative art spaces or whatever we're actually here to do. So yeah, can we just do 10-15 minutes of that? And yeah. I don't know if we have enough hands.
Let's ask this question for others who are not, we can say always. So, self-obsession, I think, is very...
But we are made that way, I don't think it's...
Yeah. Put it up on the thing.
So we all shared our ideas, and there was lots of particular words, and then we kind of combined them to come up with this. So it's to learn and agitate by embracing diversity and connecting with others. It was surprising how quickly we arrived. Oh, sorry. It was actually surprising how quickly we arrived at a consensus as well. Yeah, really, yeah.
I'm not English speaker.
It's my funny Irish accent.
We didn't actually make a sentence, and I realized this was my idea, so... We tried to do one word each, and we each came up with maybe 2 words about what we want. And they all ended in ing, so then we voted for the one that we liked the most, an empowering one, got 3 votes. And then we kind of made this diagram. I'm going to wear it. So, and this is like a really silly, cheesy model of what I guess culture is, which is probably some stupid thing a government would put up to convince you to pay taxes. But we took the different terms and we figured, okay, well, you're inspired, you're empowered, and that leads to the act of creation. And then all of these other things are more sort of like receiving aspects, like thinking, understanding, learning, and accessing the world. And the communication between your thoughts and your evaluations and the actual work is... And then we started to look at, okay, well, where's the problems? Because I guess we need to talk about problems and what we're not doing well. So we're starting to draw where on this diagram we personally found our problems. And that was you, Christina, under thinking. And Svetlana was also... That's understanding. And, oh, you have the whole mess. And I think for me it's communication, obviously. But Yeah, so sorry, it's no sentence, but it's a little bit. Yeah, so I'm going to get this tattooed on my back tonight. So if anybody knows a good tattoo artist. Who wants the mic?
I don't know if I need this. We put sentences, each of us, like in short words, and tried also to get it together in one sentence, kind of, and made this diagram, kind of, and to give and to get, experiences of spiritual pleasures, development through questions and answers, and that leads to fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of, yeah, it's collected. Oh.
Sorry. It's good. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It's our turn.
Oh, should I write it on the board?
Yes, but then it's quite long.
When you combine
Yeah, maybe. The last sentence.
Yeah, I don't know if this was like valuable for anybody, but
It's good.
it's a way to start to talk to each other a bit, because people are coming back tomorrow, and I guess the program's quite open tomorrow.
It is open.
So it'll be good to see if we can turn this into something where we can maybe, I don't expect any of us to walk out of here having formed a new association or anything together. And believe me, there's enough associations around us, but it would be really interesting if we can actually take something from this and maybe have a new perspective and go back and fuck shit up back in our own.
Okay. Yeah, long sentence. Just a finish. Yeah. Okay.
It's an obsession with reaching other layers of consciousness in order to get to know humanity. That was the key. Self-obsession, but you crossed off the self.
So you can just lift up to see, I mean, not read them all, but I mean, this is how we got to.
Yeah. We had some key players were reaching other layers of consciousness, what it is to be human, to see differently, to observe yourself from a distance, and to know yourself and others.
Yeah,
and the spiritual things. There's lots of these things.
Yes.
Well.
We thought spiritual was a difficult word. It was.
Yeah.
So if I can ask one more question Are we finishing now? Should we finish?
It's okay, I think we have some more time.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing I'd like us to think about overnight, if we have these ideas and these models of art, culture, creation, whatever, and we're supposed to be talking about alternative art structures, then what about this diagram is alternative? If this is our alternative art space, would a museum or a state gallery or the opera have a different shape to this? Where would the alternative aspect be? What actually makes this different?
I think also because I mean all of us who are here now in Sofia, I don't have my microphone, but all of us who are now like in Sofia and Art Fest, we are here in somewhere I think in the same reason. We like to connect to each other. It's not only about making an exhibition and like showing you stuff. But if you make this with artists who are sitting in the studio day after day after day after day and working for one single exhibition every year or something like that, then you probably have something else in this. It could be interesting to see the difference also, I mean, between artists and artists. You said like opera house and these things, of course you have that, but you also have the other side which is actually our colleagues. You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
it's interesting.
As well as regards from culture. It's not like regards to arts have initiatives. Yeah. So this is a much broader.
Our desire is alternative.
Sorry?
Is our desire alternative, or is our needs alternative to reaching the same desire? I don't know the answer.
That's a good question to think about.
So everybody write 2 A4 pages on it. In English and Bulgarian. But again, like, I'm not really an artist from a background, so the reason I say the word culture so much is because I think that the same model applies to a studio artist, a painter, a sculptor, as it does to somebody in a punk band, for example, or a ballerina, or any sort of, anybody in the arts, or even maybe the humanities I would draw into that, because to me that's culture as well. And this is
culture is people.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in the arts, you don't have to be here, it's people.
So yeah.
No matter what walk of life you're from.
All these microphones
I think in the end, what makes kind of artists, we are trying to really think seriously about this kind of things, and that's why society have to support us. Because only us do that.
Yes.
Of course, I mean also philosophers and literates and all the rest, kind of culture people. So I think this is one of the main missions, to think about these kind of things and really to work on them and try to get back with answers or questions to other people. I mean, other people.
I remember actually, there was an interview, I've heard lots of people within the arts use this quote as well. It was actually a civilian. It was somebody on the radio who called up and was talking about particular topics, and they just came out with this absolute gem where it was, we don't live in an economy, we live in a society. There's a distinction there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not like up to the set rules by the system, which at the moment is the capitalism, obviously. So, but this is cracking. So, I mean, everyone is thinking about new maybe ways of changing monetary system, you know, and other ways of dealing with basic society. How do we live together, for Christ's sake? You know, what do we do together?
I hear about talking about what that might look like.
Yeah,
that's really important. It's so
exactly.
important.
It's very important. I believe it's very important. Yeah, good. So, I don't know even what to tell you.
Okay, that's good finish.
Yes, that's good finish for today.